Annie has always been the steady one, the calm presence, the reassuring smile, the person who somehow manages to keep everything balanced even when life gets complicated. She's known for her warmth, her honesty, and the way she carries herself with quiet confidence. But this time, that confidence wavered. As Annie appeared, something felt different. The room was familiar, the faces around her unchanged, yet there was a softness in her expression that hinted at a deeper emotion. She smiled, as she always does, but it lingered just a second longer, like she was gathering strength before speaking. When she mentioned Ben, her voice shifted. Not dramatically, not suddenly, just enough for people to notice. Ben Shephard has always been more than a colleague or a familiar face on screen. He's someone people feel they know, kind, dependable, full of energy, and endlessly encouraging to those around him. And for Annie, that bond runs deeper than words easily explain. She tried to keep things light at first, a small joke, a gentle laugh, the kind of humor that says everything's fine, or at least it will be. But emotions have a way of finding their moment. As Annie spoke, her words slowed. She paused, not because she didn't know what to say, but because what she felt mattered too much to rush. Her eyes glistened, and for the first time, the smile faded. That's when everyone understood. This wasn't about drama. This was about care, about concern, about love that refuses to stay hidden. Annie took a breath, steadying herself, and laughed softly at her own reaction. She joked that she never planned to get emotional, especially not in front of so many people. That honesty drew a warm response, smiles, nods, quiet understanding. Even in that vulnerable moment, Annie found a way to make people feel comfortable. She spoke about Ben with affection, the kind that comes from years of shared experiences, inside jokes, and mutual respect. She didn't exaggerate or speculate. She simply spoke from the heart, and that made all the difference. Her voice trembled briefly, not from fear, but from feeling too much at all once. There was something unexpectedly romantic in the way she talked about him. Not romance in the obvious sense, but in the deep connection between two people who genuinely care. The kind of bond built on trust, laughter, and knowing someone will show up when it matters. Annie smiled through tears and said that Ben would probably tease her for getting emotional. That thought made her laugh, and the laughter spread, lightening the atmosphere. Because that's how these moments work. Emotion doesn't push joy away, it invites it in. Fans watching at home felt it instantly. Messages poured in, not filled with panic, but with support. People weren't just worried, they were united. United by affection for Ben, united by admiration for Annie's honesty. What made the moment powerful wasn't the tears, it was the restraint, the respect, the care taken with every word. Annie didn't want attention, she wanted reassurance, for herself and for everyone watching. She wanted people to remember what really matters, kindness, patience, and standing by the people you care about. Annie wiped her eyes and joked that she should have worn waterproof makeup. The room laughed, and Annie laughed too, this time more freely. That laugh felt like hope. She spoke about how Ben has always been the one lifting others up, often without realizing it. How his encouragement, humor, and positivity have a way of filling a room, and how strange it feels when someone like that becomes the one everyone else wants to support. There was admiration in her voice, gratitude, and a quiet promise of loyalty. As she continued, her composure returned, not because the emotion disappeared, but because she allowed herself to feel it. And that honesty made the moment even more meaningful. Sometimes strength isn't about holding back tears, it's about letting them fall and still moving forward. Annie finished speaking with a gentle smile, her eyes still bright. She didn't look defeated, she looked determined, calm, grounded. The concern hadn't vanished, but it had transformed into something else: hope. People around her responded not with questions, but with presence, a supportive glance, a reassuring nod, the kind of silent encouragement that speaks louder than words. That's what made this moment unforgettable. Not the emotion itself, but the unity it created. Later, away from the spotlight, Annie reflected on what had happened. She admitted to a close friend that she hadn't planned any of it. The words simply came out, carried by feeling. Her friend told her that was exactly why it mattered, because it was real. In the days that followed, Annie found comfort in small things, familiar routines, shared laughter, messages from people saying how much her honesty meant to them. She realized she wasn't alone, and neither was Ben. There was even room for humor. Annie joked that Ben would probably remind her of this moment forever, playfully threatening to bring it up at the most embarrassing times. That thought made her smile, imagining his grin, his easy laugh. That image gave her strength. This story isn't about fear, it's about care. It's about what happens when concern comes from love instead of panic, when people choose compassion over speculation, when emotion becomes a bridge instead of a barrier. Annie breaking down wasn't a sign that things were falling apart. It was proof that connection still matters. And Ben, whether he knows it or not, became the center of a moment that reminded everyone why kindness and loyalty mean so much. As time moves forward, one thing is certain: this moment will be remembered not for worry, but for warmth. For the way Annie showed courage by being open, for the way people responded with understanding, for the reminder that even familiar faces are human too. If this story made you pause, feel, or smile through emotion, hold on to that feeling, because it's a reminder of what truly connects us. And if you believe that empathy, humor, and honesty still have a place in the world, stay close. There are always more stories
After that emotional
worth
moment,
sharing.
life didn't suddenly return to normal, but it did move forward, one gentle step at a time. Annie found herself becoming more reflective than usual. Simple things carried more meaning: a familiar message on her phone, a shared memory that surfaced out of nowhere. Even silence felt different, less empty, more thoughtful. She realized how much Ben's presence had quietly shaped her days. Not in loud, obvious ways, but in steady ones. The reassuring jokes, the thoughtful check-ins, the way he always seemed to know when someone needed encouragement without ever making it obvious. That realization stayed with her. There were moments when Annie caught herself smiling for no reason at all. She would laugh softly, shaking her head, knowing exactly where that smile came from. She joked to herself that Ben had an annoying habit of being impossible to worry about for long. His optimism was strangely contagious, and that made everything feel lighter. Friends noticed the shift, too. They saw how Annie balanced concern with calm, emotion with strength. She didn't withdraw, she didn't dramatize. She simply stayed present, choosing warmth over worry whenever she could. One evening, while chatting with someone close, Annie admitted that what surprised her most wasn't the fear, it was the affection, the sheer number of people who cared, the way kindness appeared from unexpected places. She smiled and said it felt like watching a room quietly fill with light. There was something deeply romantic about that idea. Not romance in the storybook sense, but in the way people come together when it truly matters, in the way concern turns into connection, and connection turns into support. Annie leaned into that feeling. She allowed herself to rest more, to laugh more, to enjoy small comforts without guilt. A favorite song playing in the background, a warm drink held between both hands, a moment of calm where everything felt manageable again. And when Ben's name came up, her expression softened, not with sadness, but with fondness. She joked that he would definitely tease her about becoming unexpectedly emotional, and that thought alone made her laugh. She could already imagine his response, half amused, half touched, pretending not to care while caring deeply. That image gave her reassurance, because humor had always been their shared language. Even during uncertainty, laughter found a way in. As time passed, Annie grew more confident in the quiet truth she'd discovered. Concern doesn't have to consume you. It can coexist with hope, with patience, with trust. She understood now that being open about emotion didn't make things heavier, it made them easier to carry. People continued to respond warmly, not with intrusive questions, but with kindness, with messages that said, "We're thinking of you," instead of "tell us everything." That difference mattered. It allowed space for dignity. And in that space, Annie found peace. She reminded herself that strong bonds don't weaken under pressure. They reveal themselves. And what had been revealed was something beautiful: loyalty, care, and a shared belief that things would be okay. Eventually, Annie looked back on that emotional moment not with embarrassment, but with pride. Pride that she had spoken from the heart. Pride that she had allowed people to see her as she truly is, human, caring, and real. That authenticity stayed with viewers, too, because everyone knows what it's like to worry quietly, to care deeply, to hope silently while smiling for others. Annie's story didn't frighten people. It reassured them. It reminded them that compassion still exists, that concern can be gentle, that love doesn't always shout, it often whispers. And perhaps that's the most powerful part of this story. Not the emotion, not the uncertainty, but the calm strength that followed. As Annie moved forward, she carried that lesson with her. She trusted that whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone, and neither would Ben. Because when people come together with kindness, even the heaviest moments feel lighter. If this continuation made you feel comforted, hopeful, or quietly understood, then it has already done something meaningful. Some stories don't end with answers. They end with connection.